Okay, I think we're good now. I think I say that every time, but okay. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good to see everybody. Hello. Welcome back. We've been absent. Well, we missed last week. I was out of town, but we're back. Today's class was a lot of chapters, wasn't it? And a lot of things.
It was a lot of things.
A lot of things, yes, very good. These chapters were packed with a bunch of individuals, even some new people, a bunch of situations. And so it really, chapters 13 through 18 are just full of things. And I will just say it right off, there is no way we're going to be able to talk about every little thing in every chapter. We just can't do it. We don't have the time for that. But we'll try. The focus of our study, of course, is David. We're really trying to understand David, and I think if we keep that in mind, it helps us to not get so lost in the weeds. So if we try to think about David and make sure that he remains our focus, I think that'll help us get through these chapters. So that said, these chapters really are the repercussions of David's sin, right? Mm-hmm. David just sinned with Bathsheba. He committed murder, adultery, all of those things. And God made a promise, a prophetic utterance, and said the sword's never going to, leave your house. And so this is, of course, the beginning of that. David's sin, I think, is returning to haunt him in a way. Yeah. He's reaping the consequences of that. And so the Lord's prophetic word is playing out here. I titled this on my paper anyway, David in Conflict. And this morning when Clint asked me, because he titles it on the stream, he asked me what I was going to title it. He said, "Are you going to title it David in Turmoil?" I said, "Well, no. I'm going for David in Conflict." He's like, "Well, I don't know. Maybe turmoil is better." I said, "Well, I don't know. I think I'm going with conflict." And so he said, "Maybe we should put it to a poll vote on YouTube." Anyway, I don't know what he ended up using, but I have on my paper in conflict. But turmoil works good. It really does, because David really is in turmoil here. He's in conflict and in turmoil. For ease, or to help us get through this class a little easier, I did make a list of the primary individuals in these chapters, and it is a really lengthy list. There's a lot of people, but I have it up there so that it'll help us kind of maybe keep them straight as we go through these chapters. We already know, just for introduction's sake, I suppose, Absalom, of course, who is that? David's son, right? He's not his firstborn son. He's actually his third, and that was in that list of sons when he was made king in Hebron. These are the sons that he had there. So Absalom is his third son. Who is Tamar?
Daughter.
Whose?
Who was raped? David's
No.
daughter.
Whose daughter is she?
Oh, David's.
No, she is Absalom's daughter.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, that makes sense.
Okay, I misread
Oh, I
that.
did too.
Yeah.
That makes more sense.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, I will.
Let me make sure.
That's
Oh,
why
no.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
See, I'm not going to be very clear here. My word. When everybody looked at me, I thought, well, maybe I did say the wrong thing. Absalom, the son of David, had a lovely sister. This is Tamar, David's daughter.
That's what I thought.
Okay.
Yes, I'm trying to
Whoa.
make things
Okay.
up over here, Mary. David's daughter.
I know, you were just testing us to see if we were
Yeah,
paying
are y'all awake?
She was waiting for her
Okay,
brother.
we're off to a great start.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Amnon. Who's that? Who's Amnon?
Oh, the firstborn son
Of David.
Of David.
Yes, very good. Amnon is the firstborn son of David. And who is this fella Jonadab?
He is David's brother Shimei, whatever his name is.
Shema in the earlier chapters, and then
Son.
Shemaiah here in this chapter.
It's the son of.
That's his son, right?
Yes, so
Yes,
this would
and
be
he's
David's
evil.
nephew,
Yeah.
but he's also the friend
That's an evil
to Amnon.
name.
Yeah.
Evil.
Very good, very good.
Boo.
Yeah. Joab, we know him, right? He's
Yeah.
the commander of
Commander.
David's army, the captain of his army. But he's also David's nephew via one of his sisters. So Joab is David's nephew. The woman of Tekoa, that describes her right here, but do you remember reading about her? Okay, Joab uses her to persuade the king. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Who do we have? Ittai, do y'all remember reading about him? Ittai, do you remember Ittai the Gittite?
Mhm.
He's actually a man from Gath. And so he's not even an Israelite, but he's faithful to David.
Isn't
He
he the
shows.
one that David told him to go ahead and take his family and all of them and leave?
But he wouldn't.
And he said, no, I'm going to be loyal
Yes,
to my king.
yes.
Okay.
He was very loyal to
That's-
David. That's right. But the important thing to note there is that he's not even an Israelite.
Right.
Next we have Zadok. Who are Zadok and Abiathar? They hold an office, a very important office. They're both priests.
Yeah.
And then these are their sons who also play an important role in these chapters because they're like secret messengers. Right?
That's
Okay.
spies.
Right. And then was it this one I think who runs at the end to go deliver the news? Okay. We'll get to that, I suppose. Ziba, does anybody remember who that is?
I think it's the guy that he moved back to his. Is that the one that moved back home? No. I'm
So
getting confused.
that's okay. He was actually one of Saul's servants.
Oh.
He served in Saul's house.
Mhm.
And then when David, a few chapters back, asked if there was anybody left of Saul's house, Mephibosheth was found. And so then Ziba met,
Oh.
remember, Mephibosheth is Jonathan's son.
Yes.
And so Mephibosheth is now going to eat at the king's table.
Mhm.
He's got this land, and Ziba now is the caretaker
Okay.
of his land and his crops and his things. All right, but he, I don't know if you remember reading, is getting ready to deceive Mephibosheth, or deceive David
Okay.
in chapter 16. Okay, and then we read it in chapter 16 of another man named Shammai. Remember him? What did he do? Anybody remember that? He's the one who cursed David.
And was throwing rocks.
Yes,
and
kicking up
dirt.
dust and dirt and throwing rocks at David. Ahithophel, do you remember him? Ahithophel, just real quickly, he was David's probably most trusted counselor. His counsel was as if God was speaking himself. Now that doesn't mean he was a prophet, but that he was very wise and trusted, and David trusted him, and so he was David's wisest counselor, I suppose, and used him a lot, I'm sure. But he goes and now works for the enemy, Absalom eventually.
But he goes on David's bid, right?
No,
No, he didn't.
nope,
Okay.
nope,
Not
nope. That would be Hushai.
Okay.
Hushai what was he? I forgot what he was. Archite. Very good, thank you. Hushai the Archite was David's friend. Even Absalom calls him David's friend.
Yeah.
Why have you left your friend? Because Hushai went with David when David left Jerusalem, but David said, you're going to be of more use to me, basically, if you go and do this for me
That's
with Absalom. So Hushai is the one who goes back undercover.
yeah.
Okay, we'll talk about that. The woman of Bahurim, do you remember her? She's a little bit obscure, but she's pretty important, actually. When these two messengers are relaying messages, she hides them in the well, remember, covers them up. Amasa, do you remember him? He's pretty important, is becoming pretty important just because Absalom is the one who made him captain of his army. And so now you have Joab, who is a captain of David's, and Amasa, who is now in that position, and they're both trying to get this throne or whatever. And so do you think that Joab is going to like him? Okay, no, he's not. He doesn't like anybody who's rivaling his position. He's already took care of some people before. Okay. And then we have the Cushite. Right at the very last, he's when he wants to go deliver news to David about what's happened, but Joab says no, because it's not good news. let's send the Cushite instead. And so the Cushite goes, and there's like a race. Cushite doesn't know that he's coming, but anyway, Ahimaaz beats him.
Yeah.
But when he gets there, of course, Ahimaaz doesn't tell David exactly everything that happened. But he kind of just breaks the,
Yeah.
what do you call that?
Ice.
Breaks the ice a little bit, yeah. And then he lets Cushite just bear the bad news. But anyway, okay, so there's who we're going to cover today. As best we can in this short amount of time that we have. Okay, I am going to be honest with you. This study, I've been studying this for the past 2 weeks, of course, because we had a week off. But most of my time in preparing for today has been centered on chapter 13. Primarily because I think you have to land somewhere in understanding why certain things either did or did not happen here, because that is going to help you interpret the rest of these chapters. And so I spent a lot of time meditating on this chapter because I've had some difficulty with it. I really did. And so what I'm going to present to you today is just where I am at, where I've landed with it in my own personal study of it. And it could change because there might, something might come to light later that I just didn't see or forgot or didn't realize, or I don't know, whatever. So this could change, but it took oh man, Clint was probably, I know he was, really tired of me talking about it because I had to get it out of my head, to think through it, and so I've been everywhere with it, but this is where I finally landed on it. So we know that there's a crime committed here. It's obvious. Amnon raped his half-sister Tamar. Okay. Now, it says in the text that he loved her. We know this is not love. This is not what love does. This is pure lust, pure animal type instinct and lust. Yes, that's right. And so it's very impulsive. It's, once he was gratified, he had no use for her. He hated her. It was very, people even do this today. This is what people do when they rape. Okay. Now, he had, though, a friend, a wicked friend, Jonadab, who was also related to him. I guess they would be cousins, right? But he comes up with a plan to get Amnon what he wants, and so Amnon follows through with that. It works in his favor, I guess. He made it happen. All right, so he calls his sister Tamar. He pretends he's sick, yada yada. So you have Amnon, who commits the crime, his friend, who really is an accomplice to this, and then you have righteous Tamar. Right? She's the innocent party here. She really thought her brother was sick, I'm assuming. And so she goes to serve him and is taken advantage of. Now, I don't know. Okay. Then you have David. What did David do about it? What does the text say David did?
He was not happy, but he didn't do much about it, I don't think. I think he just
Look
said
at verse
off to his brother.
21. This is all it said. Look at verse 21. What's it say?
It just said he was angry.
Yep. But when King David heard of all these things, he was very angry. And rightly so, right? This was his daughter. This was an atrocious act by his firstborn son. But that's it. He was angry. So herein was my problem.
Yeah.
Why does the text only say that he was angry? Was there something that he should have done Is there something that he could have done, or were his hands tied, or why didn't he do anything here, and why was he just angry? I was really, really, really trying to understand this. This is what I was really trying to understand in this chapter, and this is what preoccupied most of my time in preparing this lesson. Was trying to understand this. And so this is what I've come up with, as far as I can tell. So if you'll just bear with me. Okay. So first off, we know that Amnon's crime was like David's. Okay? They both took someone who did not belong to them. Okay. Now, there's a subtle difference, though, in their circumstances. David took another man's wife, and we know from the law, especially like Leviticus 20, he deserved death because of that. And I think it might even could be argued that she did too. But anyway, that's besides the point. But he did for sure. But Amnon, he did not take somebody else's wife. He took a virgin, an unbetrothed virgin, which makes a difference because in the Torah there's a difference between the taking of an unbetrothed virgin and a betrothed virgin. If you'll remember that biblically speaking, if a woman was betrothed, it was as if she was already married. She was already in agreement with this man to officially be married, but it was as if she was already. It's not like our engagement where you can just already break it off and, you know, that kind of thing. It wasn't like that. Okay, so that's the difference. So since Amnon took an unbetrothed virgin, there are some laws in the Torah about that. And what I found so far in my study is that there are two places that speak to this. The first is in Deuteronomy 22, verses 28 and 29. And all that says is, the consequence of a man taking an unbetrothed virgin and raping her, taking advantage of her, is a payment of 50 shekels of silver to the father and to marry the woman. Okay? And I'm going to say some things about this here in just a minute. But the other verse that goes with that is in Exodus 22, verses 16 and 17. So this is a little earlier time-wise. But anyway, this just gives the caveat that the father could refuse to give his daughter to that man. He can accept the bride price, but he doesn't have to give her to him to be married. The reason why all of this, payment of 50 shekels of silver and marrying, was because when a man took advantage of an unbetrothed virgin, she now was unclean, tainted. She was never going to marry after that, ever. She was going to remain desolate all of her days, which is exactly what Tamar knew here in the text. That word I think is used by somebody in there. But anyway, so at the very least, the father would get money in order to continue to care for his daughter throughout the rest of her life, because she's not going to be working. She's going to be living at home, and now at least he'll have a sum of money to take care of her if he refuses to let her marry that man. Okay? Now, he didn't have to do that. He could have taken the money and then let her marry him, and then he actually, the one who committed this sin against her, would marry her and then would not be able to divorce her. That was also another little caveat in there. Okay. So that's what the Torah dictates with regard to this type of situation. These are the two closest laws I could find in the Torah that speak to this situation here in 2 Samuel 13. Now, if you apply that here, what are 50 shekels of silver to a prince in all of this? David didn't need the money, right? Okay, so we got to keep that kind of thing in mind here. But the other thing is that Tamar's his sister. Not only is she an unbetrothed virgin, but she is his sister, half-sister. And there are other laws in the Torah that prohibit you from marrying your sister, half or otherwise. So I'm going to give you those verses. You can look them up yourself. This is as far as I've gotten in my study with it. Maybe something else will come to light. But I have Leviticus 18, verses 6 and following is a big list of who you're not allowed to marry, basically, have relationship with. And then I also have Leviticus 20, verse 17. But I want to explain a little bit of a difference between these two verses. So in Leviticus 18 and 6 and following, there's a lot of, the phraseology is, you shall not uncover your sister's nakedness. You shall not uncover your mother's nakedness. You shall not uncover your father's. Oh, no, it goes like that. In other words, don't intermarry. That's really what it's meaning there in that context. But then in Leviticus 20, though, 20 verse 17 is what I said. It says if a man takes his sister and they uncover each other's nakedness, it is a disgrace, and they shall both be cut off. I think here that within this context of Leviticus 20, this is actually a consensual situation. That's why they're both going to be cut off. They've uncovered each other's nakedness. They both were agreeing to do this thing. So that's the difference there in Leviticus 20. But those are the two, it's just, both are an abomination to the Lord. Both should not be done. And so when you apply that to Amnon, Tamar, David is king. I had to wrestle with this for the last 2 weeks, so you can wrestle with it now. I'm not going to tell you what to think about it, but you have this situation where Deuteronomy and Exodus say payment of 50 shekels, marry the woman, or the father can refuse refuse the woman to be married. And then you have, he's not supposed to be married at all to her because they're related. Okay, so there's that. So Amnon's crime was like David's, but a little different. Yeah, maybe so. Okay, second, I think this is very curious in this chapter and a little bit subtle, but I think it's really important. Second, I think that there are no witnesses to this crime. If you'll remember, Amnon was very careful to get everybody out. Now, I'm not saying that nobody knew about it. Jonadab knew what he was going to do. Absalom knew what he did and wasn't there. David knew. Okay, but there were 0 witnesses there. And you know as well as I do, in the Torah, 1 witness isn't even enough. You got to have like 2 or 3 for the death penalty here. Okay? And so there wasn't even a way to prove the crime. So not only did Amnon be sure he was sure that was the case. Nobody was left to witness. And then what does Absalom say to Tamar when he realizes what has happened?
Don't ignore it.
Look at verse 20. He tells her to hold her peace. Okay.
Do not take it to heart.
So was he telling her not to make this public, not to bring it before the king, and to not bring an accusation against Amnon?
Because if he didn't, that would hurt her worse.
If so, why did he tell her that?
Well, it could have been either, like she said, just keep it quiet, or because
He had his own plans in mind.
I was getting ready to say,
He
yeah.
was conniving.
Absalom is not a good guy here at all. There's not one little bit